Discover God's divine plan. 7 miraculous ways to experience transforming faith and redemption. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, the cries of the Israelites echoed throughout the land of Egypt. Heavy shackles clanked with each step of Eliab, a Hebrew slave burdened by the weight of despair, yet carrying an unyielding faith in his heart. In a harsh world of Pharaoh's reign, his dreams flickered like embers in the night, yearning for freedom. A freedom that seemed forever out of reach. Daily toil under the merciless taskmaster came with a promise, whispered among the weary, God has raised up a deliverer named Moses. The words of Miriam, an elder with the light of hope illuminating her face, pierced the monotony of Eliab's struggles. He felt a stirring, igniting within him a fierce resolve that resonated with the cries of his fellow Israelites. When Moses confidently strode into Pharaoh's court demanding, "Let my people go," Eliab sensed both dread and hope coursing through him. Yet his hope quickly soured as punishment for that defiance fell heavily upon them all. The Egyptians' wrath mirrored the Israelites' plight as their burdens multiplied, and despair seeped into the cracks of their spirits. Then rained down upon Egypt the plagues of the Almighty. Water turned to blood, swarms of frogs devouring land, gnats enveloping air. Each affliction, a sign of God's might, left the Israelites in dire straits, enduring the backlash of Pharaoh's fury. With every plague, Eliab found himself wrestling with faith and fear as he witnessed his kin's suffering deepen. As the fateful night of the final plague approached, a firm command resonated in the depths of his heart, delivered through Moses. Take a lamb and mark your doorposts with its blood. A trembling hope kindled within Eliab. Determined to obey, he gathered his family and set to preparing the Passover. As they painted blood upon their doorpost, a memory filled Eliab's mind. The promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob began to unfold like a divine tapestry. With the dusk of night enveloping them, the sky darkened as the force of God's judgment hovered over Egypt. Eliab huddled with his family within their humble dwelling, anxiety prickling at his heart. As waves of anguish surged outside, he whispered prayers of gratitude, the echoes of faith ringing in the stillness encircling them. Would the blood truly protect them? Could salvation really arrive this night? In the early hours of dawn, a strange silence settled. The cries of anguish grew faint, eclipsed by the magnificent light of freedom approaching. Pharaoh's heart, once unyielding, shattered under the weight of God's hand, and came the shout, "Go, leave my people." Eliab's heart raced, disbelief entwined with exhilaration as he joined countless others, racing toward liberation woven by God's divine purpose. Yet the path to freedom was laden with doubts as they journeyed into the wilderness, grappling with hunger and uncertainty. Each day became a test of faith as manna fell from heaven, a divine provision grounding their hope. They reached the shores of the Red Sea, a seemingly insurmountable obstacle before them, and Eliab could feel the suspense crackle in the air. Would they trust God when everything appeared lost? Just then, the waters of the sea loomed high, and Eliab understood that this moment would seal his faith in the God who delivered. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's Word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's Word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Eliab's heart raced as the Israelite community gathered, eyes wide in fear, yet twinkling with a glimmer of hope. The path forward lay in the mighty hands of God, and the waters began to rise behind them. Would the way be made anew? The weight of uncertainty pressed against Eliab's heart, but with it came the dawning realization that God's plan was unfolding, ready to reveal the magnitude of his power. As the waves surged, Eliab watched with trembling anticipation. Moses stood at the forefront, his staff raised high, his eyes piercing with the promise of divine deliverance. With a voice that echoed like thunder, Moses proclaimed, "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today." Exodus 14:13. The air was electric, charged with the unseen presence of God. Eliab felt his heart synchronize with the throbbing rhythm of hope as visions of freedom danced through his mind. All around him, the murmurs of the anxious crowd faded as he focused on the figure of Moses, a beacon of strength amidst the swelling tide of doubt. Suddenly, a miraculous wind swept through the shores of the Red Sea, swirling and shaping the waters with divine intent. To Eliab's eyes, it appeared as if the mighty sea obeyed the command of the Creator, parting with a roaring proclamation. Tall walls of water formed to either side, and a path of dry ground stretched before the Israelites, beckoning them into the unknown. Eliab's pulse quickened. "Is this truly his doing?" he whispered, casting a glance at his family huddled beside him, eyes reflecting the flickering flame of faith ignited within their hearts. "Shall we cross over?" he murmured to his wife, her face resolute against the backdrop of desperation. "God has brought us this far. We must trust him now," she replied, taking his hand firmly. They joined the throng, pushing forward with urgency, their feet scarcely touching the earth as they stepped into the impossibility of their new path. As they traversed through the passage, Eliab marveled at the towering walls of water, impossibly held aloft. Fear ebbed away as adrenaline surged, transforming doubts into a symphony of hope. Yet the threat of Pharaoh's army loomed close, clouds of dust heralding their approach. Will the path remain open? Can we truly escape? At the back of his mind, an undercurrent of dread whispered darkly. Reaching the midpoint, Eliab turned swiftly, witnessing the approaching chariots of Egypt, adorned with gleaming bronze and swirling dust. His heartbeat thundered as he understood. The perfect storm of pursuit was upon them. "Lord, have mercy," he cried out silently, feeling the weight of the world pressing in as fear clawed at his heart once more. But in that moment, Moses raised his staff over the waters again, and the hand of God moved mightily. As the Israelites reached the far shore, a great wind howled, and the walls of water began to collapse, closing in upon the advancing Egyptians. The deafening sounds of divine victory filled the air as the waters swallowed their enemies whole. Exodus 14:27-28. Eliab fell to his knees on dry ground, the reality of their deliverance washing over him like the morning sun. "Holy is the Lord," he proclaimed. Together, the Israelites erupted into praise, their voices lifting to the heavens, proclaiming, "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously." Exodus 15:1. In the newfound joy of liberation, as they gazed back at the remnants of Egypt, Eliab felt the still small voice of God echo through him. This is but the beginning. With hearts united in faith and anticipation, the Israelites turned their eyes forward into the wilderness, where they would learn to rely on God with each step. But little did they know, the barrenness would soon bring forth the greatest trials yet, revealing not only their deepest fears but also the greater depth of God's sovereign plan for his people. As the dust of Egypt faded behind them, the Israelites ventured into the wilderness, a realm of desolation pregnant with possibility and divine instruction. The sun beat down upon their heads, searing the dry ground beneath their feet, yet a cloud of mystery shrouded their path ahead. Eliab felt a stirring within him, a holy anticipation mingled with uncertainty. Moses led the way, guided by the unerring presence of the Lord. "The God who delivered us will lead us into the promise," he assured the people, his voice steady as he spoke the very words of heaven. Yet the wilderness stretched endlessly before them, a stark reminder that the journey would not be without trial. "Only be steadfast and true," he urged. Days turned to weeks as they traversed the rugged terrain, and with every step, fatigue threatened to sap their resolve. Whispers emerged among the people, casting shadows of doubt. "Was it better for us in Egypt?" they murmured, harking back to the flesh pots they had left behind. Knowing the hunger that lay in their stomachs, Eliab could empathize. Yet he was determined not to succumb to despair. "We are not forsaken," he declared, gathering those around him in prayer. One day, as the sun lowered in a blaze of orange, stretching shadows across the sand, a restlessness seized the camp. Their thirst grew desperate. Water was scant, and the cries of children echoed in the stillness of the evening. "What should we do now?" Eliab heard one woman exclaim, her lips parched and eyes wide with fear. Moses ascended the hill, seeking the Lord. "God, how shall we quench their thirst?" he called out. And the answer came in the form of divine instruction, displayed before his very eyes. "Take your staff and go to the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will flow forth for the people." Exodus 17:6, God commanded. Moses returned resolute and summoned the people to gather near the rock. Clad in dust and despair, the multitude formed a circle around him, their eyes filled with wonder and questions. Eliab held his breath, a flicker of hope igniting as the moment of revelation drew near. "By the power of the Almighty," Moses spoke, raising his rod before them, "water shall spring forth in this barren land." With a mighty blow, he smote the rock, and a gushing torrent erupted, cascading into the parched earth. Gasps of disbelief mingled with shouts of joy as the cool, life-giving water splashed upon their dusty faces. Eliab quenched his thirst greedily, feeling the coolness flow through him like a divine elixir. As joy enveloped the camp, he turned and caught a glimpse of the elders nodding in approval, their faith reignited by the miraculous provision. "Truly, our God is a God of wonders," he cried, lifting his hands in exultation. But beneath the surface, shadows still loomed. And yet, what lay ahead, he pondered, realizing this act of mercy was but a fleeting respite. The wilderness possessed many challenges, and in these very lessons, God intended to shape his people for the covenant to come. As the dust settled and the echoes of praise faded, Eliab felt a whisper within him, stirring the depths of his soul. "This is but the beginning of shaping a nation for my promise," echoed the Lord, as if to affirm the very thoughts of his faithful servant. And so, with renewed vigor, the Israelites ventured on, unaware that the wilderness would soon test their faith with crucible-like fervor, drawing them ever closer to the heart of God's sovereign promise, as they stepped into the perfect design of his eternal plan. As the days unfurled in the wilderness, the Israelites continued their journey, weary yet alive with the fresh miracle of water. But the harsh sun bore down relentlessly, and fatigue wrapped around their hearts like chains. In the silence that followed the miracle, a new complaint began to arise among the people, a murmur that drew closer to the heart of despair. Eliab felt the rising tide of agitation, aware that their resolve was being tested anew. "Is this how we were meant to live?" one man cried out, his voice sharp against the windswept sands. "In hunger we were brought out, only to starve in a dry land." Moses, wise and steadfast, gathered the elders to seek counsel from the Lord. "O God of our ancestors," he pleaded, "how long must we suffer without food in this desolate place?" Then the Lord spoke, his voice gentle yet compelling. "Behold, I will rain down bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day." Exodus 16:4. This proclamation was met with a reverence that hushed the discontented whispers, for they listened closely, hearts quickening with hope. Moses relayed the command to the Israelites, excitement igniting in their eyes. "In the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, for he has heard your grumbling. Remember, it is not against us that you grumble, but against the Lord himself." Eliab felt a stirring within him, a sense of purpose rising alongside the promise. The next morning, as dawn broke with hues of gold and violet, the dew upon the ground shimmered mysteriously. When the Israelites emerged from their tents, they beheld a miraculous sight. A fine, flake-like substance covered the ground. "What is it?" they asked, marveling at the white flakes that sparkled as the sun rose higher. "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat," Moses declared, joy evident in his countenance. "Gather it according to your needs." Eliab knelt and filled his bowl with the heavenly manna, its taste sweet like honey. With each bite, he felt strength returning to his weary bones, a tangible reminder of God's provision. Yet, even amid this miraculous food, some questioned. "What if we do not gather enough?" they whispered. "What if tomorrow there is none?" Those doubts tumbled into Eliab's thoughts, attempting to take root. But as he remembered the Lord's faithfulness, he steadied his heart. "Trust in the Lord," he whispered to those nearby. "His mercies are new every morning." As days turned into weeks, the pattern of gathering was set. But there were those who, despite witnessing the miracles, disobeyed Moses' instruction, taking more than they needed. When the sun grew warm, their extra portions spoiled and bred worms. This stark reality served as a reminder of the sufficiency of God's daily provision. Through the unfolding trials, Eliab recognized the lessons hidden within the complaints and the provisions. It was not merely about food. It was about learning to depend solely on the Lord. Each moment of need brought a new opportunity for faith to bloom. Yet there came another night when restlessness prevailed, and Eliab, lying beneath a sea of stars, felt a whisper of apprehension. What awaited them still lay beyond the edge of the horizon. The path ahead was shrouded in mystery, but there was a vibrant anticipation of the promised land. "I will lead you there," echoed the voice of the Almighty, filling Eliab's spirit with profound assurance. As he closed his eyes, a question lingered in his soul. "What great trials must we endure to become the people you've called us to be?" Thus the Israelites continued forward, each footstep a blend of trepidation and unwavering faith. Though they could not foresee the trials before them, their hearts began to resonate with hope in the promise yet to unfold, for every lesson was drawing them closer to the heart of God's sovereign blueprint, rich with purpose and divine promise yet to be revealed. As the sun once again ascended the horizon, casting its golden light upon the camp, a hush fell over the Israelites. The aroma of manna filled the air, yet within that tranquility, deeper needs stirred. Eliab, among the multitude, felt an inner turmoil awakening like a storm. While sustenance had been provided from heaven, the longing for meat began to rise once more. "Would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt," the murmurs started anew, voices laced with a haunting nostalgia. "For there we sat by the pots of meat and ate bread to the full. But you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Moses, heavy-hearted, sought refuge in the presence of the Lord. "Why have you dealt ill with your servant?" he cried. "Why have I not found favor in your sight, that you lay the burden of this people upon me?" The weight of their discontent pressed upon him like the clouds heavy with rain. Then the voice of the Lord echoed in Moses' heart, firm yet reassuring. "Gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people and officers over them. Bring them to the tabernacle of meeting, that they may stand there with you." And as the Lord continued speaking, Moses felt a swell of hope amidst despair. "Then I will come down and talk with you there. I will take of the Spirit that is upon you, and will put the same upon them." Numbers 11:16-17. In obedience, Moses summoned the chosen men, and as they gathered before the tabernacle, an expectant tension filled the air. Eliab watched with bated breath, sensing that something extraordinary was about to unfold. When the Spirit of the Lord descended upon them, they were filled with a holy vigor. They prophesied, declaring the greatness of God's mercy. The people who witnessed this miraculous power began to murmur with awe, their previous complaints overshadowed by the movement of the Spirit among them. Yet still, the craving for flesh persisted among some. We remember the fish we ate freely in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic, they lamented, their hearts weighed down by thoughts of comfort and familiarity. "Who will give us meat to eat?" they cried. Moses stood before them, torn between the needs of the people and the fidelity of his service to the Lord. "I am not able to bear all this people alone because the burden is too heavy for me," he confessed as his voice trembled amidst the people. The Lord, moved with compassion, spoke once more. "You shall eat meat, not just for 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, nor 10 days, nor 20 days, but for a whole month until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you, because you have despised the Lord, who is among you." Numbers 11:19-20. Eliab's heart fluttered with mixed feelings. Hope was mingled with fear. God's provision had always been miraculous, but would it be enough to satisfy the longing deep within? As he pondered over the divine promise, he sensed a profound truth emerging, that even in moments of dissatisfaction, the Lord remained resolute in his love and care for his people. A stirring among the elders was palpable as they turned their eyes toward Moses, some recognizing the call of deeper faith amidst uncertainty. What would it mean for them to trust God fully, even when their desires craved different provisions? And so they journeyed on, each heartbeat echoing the unfolding narrative of reliance, of faith engaging with hope. Eliab's spirit soared with the revelation that God's plans stretched far beyond mere sustenance. There was a winnowing taking place, a redefining of what it truly meant to be his people. Yet, with every triumph, there lingered a question, a mystery yet to be unveiled. What were the trials meant to produce within each of them? Would they lean into his perfect will, or would they falter amidst the forgotten comforts of their past? As they began to see quails descending upon the camp in answer to the Lord's promise, the air thick with anticipation, the Israelites stood on the brink of transformation, and Eliab knew a greater purpose awaited, hidden behind the very fabric of their journey. As the evening shadows stretched across the vast encampment, a wind began to stir, whispering through the tents and crackling the dry earth. Eliab felt that wind brush against him, a tangible reminder of the Lord's promise as thousands of quails descended upon the camp. The sight was a spectacle, flocks of birds flitting through the air, their presence a physical manifestation of God's grace. But amid the excitement, a deeper stirring took place in Eliab's heart. He watched as the people surged toward the quails, their cries of joy mixing with a frenzied urgency. "The Lord has provided. Meat is upon us," they shouted, forgetting the very weight of their previous lamentations. Yet he could not shake the unsettling truth within him. Their craven desires for flesh did not meet the soul's true needs. Moses, however, still bore his burden, wrestling not only with the demands of the people but also with the intricacies of God's message. "Lord, where will you find enough flesh to satisfy this multitude?" he cried out as he observed the scene before him. "For they weep before me, saying, 'Give us meat that we may eat.'" Once again, the voice of the Lord echoed in Moses' spirit. "Is the Lord's hand shortened? Now you shall see whether my word will come to pass or not." Numbers 11:23. The rugged implication of divine power coursed through Moses, and yet he remained torn between the cries for meat and the fundamental yearning of his responsibility to shepherd this people. A thick fog of desire and greed blanketed the camp as the Israelites gathered the quails, their hands stretched out in eager anticipation. Eliab, however, hesitated. He could see their frenzied pursuit of flesh was clouding their hearts. They remained unaware that amid their desire for meat, something far more precious was at stake, their relationship with the Lord. As the Israelites feasted, Eliab turned his gaze toward the heavens. "Oh, Lord," he murmured, "have mercy on us. You have provided each day, yet our hearts are ever in pursuit of the flesh. May we not lose sight of the true bread from heaven." The night grew darker, but within Eliab's heart a flicker of hope ignited. He prayed fervently, "Let this meal not make us slaves to our appetites, but rather humble our hearts and draw us nearer to you. Teach us to feast on your word and not just on the flesh." Then, suddenly, amidst the revelry, as the quails were consumed, a great cry arose from within the camp. Those who had glutted themselves with the meat began to feel a bitter soreness rise within them. The very flesh that had tasted sweet upon their lips now turned against them, becoming loathsome and destructive. Numbers 11:33. Eliab stood aghast, understanding with increasing clarity that the Lord's desire was not simply to fulfill their physical craving, but to lead them to a deeper dependence on Him. The realization crashed over him that divine provision, while abundant, came with great responsibility. In the toll of their hunger, the people recoiled, pleading for mercy, recognizing the folly that led them from gratitude into gluttony. They turned back toward Moses, their hearts filled with remorse and their voices trembling. "Moses, please," they beseeched, "intercede for us. We have sinned against the Lord." As Moses prayed for the people, Eliab stepped forward, emboldened by the unfolding revelation. "O people of Israel, see how easily we can stray. Let us return to our steadfast reliance on the one who provides our every breath. The quails may fill our stomachs, but only the Lord can fill our souls." While Moses interceded, a holy atmosphere hung above the camp, thick with the divine presence. And it became clear, the Lord had a message far greater than satisfying their hunger. It was a warning and a lesson. With each passing moment, Eliab perceived the depth of God's sovereign plan weaving through their lives, how the very trials they faced were but shadows of His greater purpose. He grasped that God was shaping them, guiding their hearts from a shallow existence toward an abiding trust in His everlasting promise. The camp remained abuzz with the restoration of faith amidst weary hours, and Eliab felt a stirring of anticipation. Even in their rebellion, God had secured a powerful truth to emerge from their hearts. Hence, he pondered, would the Israelites allow this moment to truly transform them? Or would they again forget the nature of their journey? The realization dawned. God's plan for them extended beyond their immediate needs and desires. And there within the darkness, clarity illuminated Eliab's mind. For in their trials, they were being called to greater unity, deeper reliance, and a renewal of covenant with the Almighty. Would they embrace His ways in the midst of their transformation, or retreat into the idolatry of their appetite? Thus Eliab stood firm, heart open, ready for the Lord to reveal what was next on their path toward the Promised Land, knowing there lay even greater mysteries to unveil. In the days that followed, as the echoes of lamentation subsided and the bitterness from the feast still lingered in the hearts of the people, the Lord spoke once more to Moses, revealing a path of true restoration. "Gather unto me 70 elders of Israel, whom you know to be the leaders of the people and officers over them," he commanded, "and bring them to the tabernacle of meeting, that they may stand there with you." Numbers 11:16. Moses, obedient to the divine command, summoned the elders, their faces etched with the weariness of the recent trials. Eliab was among the chosen, feeling the weight of responsibility as he joined the assembly at the tent of meeting. An expectant hush fell over the gathering, for they knew they stood on the threshold of a divine encounter. Then the Lord descended in a cloud and spoke to Moses, taking of the Spirit that was upon him and placing it upon the 70 elders. As the Spirit rested upon them, they prophesied, but only for that day. Numbers 11:25. Awe swept through the assembly, as the unworthy became vessels of God's voice. Eliab witnessed the miraculous transformation. Hearts were ignited with courage and faith surged through the camp with newfound vigor. Yet, as he marveled at the sight, a whisper of doubt pricked at Eliab's heart. Observing 2 men, Eldad and Medad, within the camp, who also received the Spirit, he felt a stirring sense of injustice. "Look, Moses," Eliab exclaimed, "Eldad and Medad prophesy in the camp. Shall we not bring them to you that they may join in this revelation?" But Moses, filled with humility and understanding, replied, "Are you zealous for my sake? Oh, that all the Lord's people were prophets, and that the Lord would put his Spirit upon them." Numbers 11:29. Eliab began to grasp the depth of Moses' words. The gift of the Spirit was not confined to any one man, but was meant for all who would seek him. As the miraculous days rolled by, Eliab felt the winds of change carry whispers of hope among the Israelites. Families gathered to share the word of the Lord, and the community began to speak of the miracles they witnessed. Unity replaced division, and gratitude supplanted greed. Eliab steeled his resolve with each passing day, yearning for their journey to continue, to embrace the lessons from their trials. Yet, even amid the awakening, a tension remained palpable. The heart of the wilderness lay before them, stretching endlessly with new trials looming. Would the people submit, not only in obedience but in renewal of spirit? Would they cultivate an understanding that true sustenance came not merely from the flesh, but from communion with the living God? Each night Eliab, alongside Moses, prayed fervently for the people, seeking the Lord's guidance and intervention. "Lord, lead us not into temptation," they would implore. "Teach us to treasure your ways above our own desires." And one fateful evening, as Moses stood at the entrance of the tent, seeking guidance, a pillar of fire illuminated the midnight sky. "You have not yet seen what I will do," the Lord spoke, his voice like thunder. "Prepare the hearts of my people, for my wrath is kindled against their desires. They must learn that following me comes with the cost of purity and transformation." Eliab felt the weight of those words settle in the depths of his spirit. God's sovereignty was clear. The journey to the Promised Land was less about the destination and more about the transformation that needed to transpire within them. As the dawn broke, Eliab looked at the rising sun, knowing in his heart their trials were paving the way, crafting a people who would be a light before the nations, a people wholly devoted to God, that they might glorify his name. In this moment of anticipation, Eliab could sense that a turning point was near. The echoes of their past hung like heavy shrouds, but God's promises were in motion, weaving a tapestry of redemption. And as the people stirred to follow, Eliab whispered a prayer, "Lord, may we embrace the price of transformation, for in our trials you are forging our faith. Reveal to us the fullness of your sovereign plan that we may stand firm in trust." The realization dawned on him, a question looming in the valley of his thoughts. With the new revelation set before them, would they yield to the calling of the Spirit, or let their hearts stray once more into a wilderness of discontent? For only then would they truly understand that to follow the Lord was to walk a path of radical faith and redemption. Would they embrace the fullness of his miraculous plan? And it came to pass after these things that the people of Israel began to grow weary in their journey. Their hearts grew restless, and they began to speak against the provision of the Lord. "Who will give us meat to eat?" they lamented. "We remember the fish which we ate freely in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic." Numbers 11:4-5. Eliab's heart sank as he heard their grumbling. They had forgotten the bondage of Egypt, the cry of their anguish, the plagues that had befallen their captors, and how the Lord delivered them with a mighty hand. Yet here they were, longing for the taste of flesh, dissatisfied with the bread of heaven. Moses, feeling the weight of their discontent, was deeply troubled. He turned to the Lord, saying, "Why have you afflicted your servant? And why have I not found favor in your sight, that you lay the burden of all this people on me?" Numbers 11:11. His voice trembled, for he carried the mantle of leadership, burdened by their complaints. The Lord responded with grace. "Gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the leaders of the people, and bring them to the tent of meeting." Numbers 11:16. He promised to take some of the spirit that was on Moses and put it on them, that they might share in the weight of the people's needs. Moses obeyed and gathered the elders, witnessing once more the outpouring of the Spirit. Yet his heart grieved for those who were lost in their dissatisfaction, unable to see the miracles unfolding before their eyes. Eliab stood among the elders, feeling the weight of his calling as he received the Spirit's empowerment. They prophesied, filled with divine words, and Eliab spoke boldly to the people. "Remember your God. He has brought you out of the land of darkness into this light. Trust in his provision." But the people remained obstinate. They spoke amongst themselves, and their voices rose like a storm. "We want meat. We long for flesh." Eliab's spirit was troubled. "Brothers, do not harden your hearts," he urged, "for our sustenance is not in meat, but in the very word of the Lord, who leads us through the wilderness." Yet, as the days turned into weeks, a wind swept through the camp, and quail appeared in abundance. The Lord granted their cries, yet it was not without consequence. The very lust of the flesh stirred calamity among them. As they feasted upon the meat, a plague broke out among the people, and many died. Numbers 11:33-34. A deep mourning fell upon the congregation, a stark reminder of their rebellion against God's provision. Eliab fell to his knees, heartbroken. "O Lord," he cried out, "may we learn from our folly. Help us to find our contentment in your presence alone." Amidst the tears and cries, he sensed the Lord's mercy prevailing over judgment. For even in their failures, God's plans were moving forward. "Name this place Kibroth Hattaavah," Moses said, symbolizing the graves of those who craved such desires. Numbers 11:34. Eliab knew the importance of the moment, recognizing a call to deeper reflection. Had not God ordained all things for their good? Would they not turn their hearts toward him and embrace the trials set before them as part of his divine purpose? As the camp settled, a stillness engulfed the land. Eliab pondered deeply, seeking the divine revelation the Lord had promised. Would the Israelites emerge from their discontent, or would they continue to wander in the wilderness of their own making? With a heart yearning for transformation, Eliab prayed, knowing the journey ahead had yet to unfold. "Lord, let our hearts be steadfast that we might see the breadth of your sovereign plan. What lessons shall we learn from these trials?" Thus, in the quiet of the night, a cloud loomed above, signaling that God was yet at work. The veil of the future was drawn, and Eliab sensed the stirring of something magnificent. For in their faithfulness, God's glory would shine, and the nation would witness the fullness of his merciful design, yet to be fully revealed. And the people continued to wander, their hearts still heavy with the memories of what they had lost in Egypt. The burden of grief weighed upon them, and the cries of the afflicted pierced the heavens. As dusk fell upon the camp, Eliab gathered with the elders, seeking the counsel of Moses, who bore the scars of leadership like a mantle. "Moses," Eliab implored, "the spirit of discontent hangs over us like a dark cloud. The cries for flesh echo still, yet we know the Lord provides. What are we to do in this weariness that surrounds us?" Moses looked upon his brethren, and his gaze reflected both sorrow and resolve. "The Lord has spoken. He desires a people who will look upon him and trust in his unfailing provision. We must teach them to remember his faithfulness, lest they turn again to the desires of the flesh." That very night, as the stars twinkled above the camp, a faint rustling was heard. Eliab stepped out of the tent, and lo, he beheld a magnificent sight. Fire descended from the heavens and enveloped the tent of meeting. The presence of the Lord filled the atmosphere, and a holy fear settled upon the hearts of the people. "What is this?" Eliab whispered in awe, before recognizing it as the glory of the Lord filling the tabernacle. The Lord spoke, "Gather the people that they may witness my might. For I will demonstrate my power, and their hearts shall turn back to me. With urgent haste, Moses commanded the assembly, "Come forth, all of you, present yourselves before the Lord, for he will reveal his goodness." The people came, both hopeful and fearful, gathering around the tent of meeting. Eliab stood with Moses, overwhelmed by the weight of awe and reverence. "Remember the deeds of the Lord," Eliab urged them, "for he hath led us out of bondage and purposes to dwell among us." Suddenly the cloud that enveloped the tent shifted, and the Lord's voice boomed, "I am the Lord your God. I have not forgotten my covenant with you. This day I shall send you bread from heaven. Manna will fall upon the earth, and in the morning you shall gather it." Exodus 16:4. The people murmured in astonishment. What was this bread that would come from the heavens? Countless were their thoughts, yet Eliab spoke, "Trust in the Lord. Even as he has provided quail in your time of need, he shall feed you once more with bread from above." As daybreak pierced the horizon, a thick layer of dew rested on the ground. As the sun rose, it revealed white flakes lying upon the surface like frost. "What is this?" they wondered. "Manna, is it not?" And Eliab confirmed, "This is the bread that the Lord has promised. Gather it, for it will nourish your spirits." With renewed vigor, the people collected the manna, marveling at its sweetness and sustenance. Yet Eliab reminded them, "Though tested, remember to not hoard, but to trust for each day. For in the desert we learn reliance upon our God." As the days passed, the miraculous provision continued, each morning bringing forth sustenance, weaving their discontent into gratitude. The complaints began to dissipate like vapor in the morning sun, and a new faith emerged. Yet Eliab sensed that deeper lessons awaited. His spirit burned with expectation. For even amidst the miracle of manna, he wondered, how would the Lord prepare their hearts for the promise of the land that flowed with milk and honey? What more awaited those who would trust in him? And so he prayed, seeking the Lord's continued guidance, seeing with newfound clarity that God was not merely feeding their bodies, but transforming their spirits within the wilderness. For the Lord, in his wondrous providence, was teaching them that their journey was not solely about escaping bondage, but entering into a covenant relationship marked by reliance and faith. With these thoughts echoing in his heart, Eliab looked out over the camp, grateful yet anxious, for he knew that the journey was still long. The Lord's purpose was unfolding, and the glory of his plan beckoned the hearts of his people to trust, to follow, and to find themselves transformed in the process. But beyond the horizon, the promised land lay waiting, shrouded in divine mystery, as God's hand prepared them for what was to come. What more would they learn of his sovereign grace? As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the wilderness became a place of profound transformation for Eliab and the Israelites. The raucous voices of discontent slowly stilled, replaced instead by hymns of gratitude, as hearts shifted from hunger for meat to a longing for the living God. Yet still the shadow of doubt lurked, and as they gathered for the sacred rites of remembrance, Eliab felt the urgency of the Lord's invitation echo within him. You are being shaped for the promise. It was on a day bathed in the warm glow of the sun that the Lord commanded Moses to consecrate 70 of the elders. That they may carry the burden of the people with you, the Lord had declared. Eliab stepped forward among the chosen, the weight of leadership resting upon his shoulders. As the Spirit filled them, each elder became a beacon of hope for the community, their voices united in prophecy, declaring the wonders of God's provision. Here I am, Lord, Eliab proclaimed as the Spirit gripped his heart. You have found us in our time of need and drawn us out of the bondage of darkness. May we bear witness to your greatness. The camp surged with anticipation, for they understood that God's glory would not only provide for their physical sustenance, but would enrich their spirits with divine revelation. One by one, miracles unfolded. Water flowed from rock, manna descended from the heavens, and quails were plentiful. Each provision sculpted their reliance upon the Almighty. weaving their hearts into a tapestry of unity and faith. But still, a cavernous longing persisted among some, an insatiable desire for the comforts of Egypt. Even in their liberations, the memory of the flesh and the spices yet lingered, whispering through the ranks of Israel. Eliab understood this struggle intimately, for he wrestled with it within himself. It was then he realized the transformation God sought to accomplish extended beyond mere physical freedom. It was the deliverance of hearts ensnared by familiar chains. With boldness, Eliab gathered the people once more. "Brothers and sisters," he urged, "our Lord has led us into this great wilderness not to forsake us, but to teach us dependence. Can our hearts not rejoice in His sufficiency?" As they listened, murmurs of doubt began to break. Eliab prayed fervently, imploring God to sweep away the tethers of nostalgia and sin. Then, in a moment etched in eternity, the cloud of the Lord descended among them, a glorious presence that affirmed His covenant and illuminated every shadow of doubt. "I am the Lord your God. Do not forget the wonders I have shown." His voice resonated in the hearts of Israel. "You are a people set apart, chosen for my glory, heirs to the promise of a land flowing with milk and honey." A great hush fell over the Israelites, a divine reverence enveloping the camp. Eliab saw tears of revelation as the people recognized the magnitude of their journey, a metamorphosis from bondage to the birth of a nation steadfast in faith. Their hearts, once tethered to the past, now began to beat in rhythm with the promises yet to be fulfilled. In a harmonious chorus they declared, "We will trust, O Lord. Your ways are higher." And Eliab, overwhelmed with joy, lifted his voice in praise, leading the assembly in a song of forsaking their former lives, embracing their destiny as God's chosen people. For every step we take is one of faith. As their voices melded with the winds of the wilderness, Eliab felt the winds of change sweep through the encampment, a tangible reminder of the Lord's transformative presence. From the depths of their trials, they began to see beyond the horizon. The promised land shone like a distant beacon, illuminated by the light of divine promise. Days turned to weeks again. The burden of the wilderness lessons drew them closer, teaching them to cherish the echoes of manna and meet with the Lord daily. Each miracle became a testament of faith, a rhythmic reminder that to follow the Lord was to surrender to His greater plans. The path arduous yet blessed, filled with a promise worth pursuing. Finally, after many days of journeying through the desert, the time came for the Israelites to reach the edge of the promised land. Eliab stood among the people, filled with a sense of awe and expectancy. He sensed the powerful promise given to their forefathers was soon to be realized. The air was thick with the murmurs of hope, yet also tempered by the necessity of completing the journey with faith unwavering. Moses ascended the mountain, and Eliab glanced up at the peak, his heart racing with anticipation. God's plans were unfolding, and the call to enter was nearing. As the elders lifted their voices in prayer, they surrounded Eliab, each filled with the promise of what was to come. "Lord, may we enter with faith, trusting your word as our guide," Eliab echoed, a thought burning within him as he grasped the eternal significance of this moment. Thus, the Israelites stood united, poised to embrace the fullness of God's sovereign plan. In the genesis of their new beginnings, Eliab knew they had emerged from the trials of the desert, transformed into a covenant people through suffering, deliverance, and divine providence, the very fabric that would lead them into the fulfillment of God's promise. And so, as they neared the gates of Canaan, the hearts of the Israelites reverberated with praise. They had come through the wilderness, willingly sowing their trials to reap the bounty of faith. Eliab proclaimed in unity with the crowd, "This is our moment, for the Lord is with us, leading us into our inheritance." Now, dear friends, we stand at the threshold of embracing the rich narrative of transformation that God has woven through this story. Let the journey of Eliab inspire you. Let us live as a people of the promise. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word through the algorithm, allowing His truth to reach the hearts that need it. Comment below your spiritual reflections and share how this biblical testimony has deeply impacted your faith in God. And don't wait. Even one more second. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth today. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word and witness the miracles He has in store for you. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Let's be God's vessels for His glory.